Welcome to the post-game podcast for Game 6. The Raptors have lost 101-83. The buzzer just sounded about 3 seconds ago. And Will's here. Hey, Will.
Hey.
Yo,
what the man? What the
Oh, man, don't make me bleep stuff out, man. There's people listening with their kids in the car here.
That's fine, man. Kids should learn now. Don't be a Raptors fan. Be a responsible parent. You know, raise them like a Warriors fan. Raise them like a Spurs fan. Raise them like a Spurs fan.
Okay, so let's 101-83. Nothing. Actually, let's just be rational here. The start was pretty good. It was a good start to the game. It was a good start to the game. We jumped on them. We forced them to call a couple of timeouts. I think you were up by like 11 or 13. At that point, it looked like shades of Game 3, where you're like, oh, the Pacers might just like fold here if the Raptors just continue this pressure for a little bit longer. But they called timeout, and then I can't even. What happened after that? Like they came back how?
Well, I mean, that guy Solomon Hill. He played a lot of nice plays. I don't know. The Pacers just tightened up on defense, and the Raptors got a little bit careless, a little bit sloppy with the basketball, and that early 18-6 advantage turned into a lot of transition points. And by the end of the first quarter, the lead was already whittled down to 2.
Yeah.
And they really couldn't get their own offense going again. And then the Pacers, got theirs going. So.
Will's not into this, eh?
Man.
Okay, so let's put it this way, man. There's no reason to talk about like small lineups, big lineups, whatever we're doing.
We could talk about it later. I feel like we gotta get the motive stuff out first, and then we'll talk about lineup changes and stuff.
Yeah. So I think I'll boil it down to this: we have our 2 star players are just playing terrible basketball. I mean, Kyle Lowry has been given a pass up to this point in the series because he's been doing a lot of other things, and 10 assists again tonight. Great. It's really good. He's running the offense. He made some nice passes to DeMar Carroll to get some points. It's great, amazing. But you know what? You're 4 for 14. You're 4 for 14. DeMar DeRozan is 3 for 13. You go 7 for 27 from those guys, which is, I don't know what percentage that is. The chances of you winning a game with those 2 guys shooting at that level requires that your role players are just blowing the Pacers out. Which is also not happening because other than Corey Joseph, nobody really had a strong game. DeMar Carroll had a bit of a game, but it's not going to happen. And the Pacers are kind of finding their rhythm. Like Miles Turner is now getting into the action. Monta Ellis is coming around now. George Hill is getting to the line a lot. So the Raptors are, as I think Blake on your podcast, which you guys did for an hour and a half, which was poorly edited, by the way.
Yeah, we had audio issues.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the good point that he made was that. The Raptors have played some bad basketball for like 7 quarters in a row. And that kind of carried over into this game other than that first like 5-minute stretch. Because if you take that 5-minute stretch out, the Raptors lost this game by like 28. Like if you discount that first like 4 minutes we got into that lead. And man, Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, I mean, do we have to talk about... let's just talk about those 2, I guess.
Let's talk about those 2. But both of them committed 4 turnovers each and tried 2 free throws each. I mean, let's start with DeMar. This is going to be an overreaction. And sometime I'm going to want to come back and revisit what I said here on DeRozan with a little bit more clarity. I'm just saying that right now in the moment, I'm starting to revisit whether or not it's a no-brainer to retain DeRozan just to keep the asset because the amount of heart he shows in these games, it's not even the fact that he's just so bad. Like he doesn't give anything on offense. He doesn't give anything on defense. It's not even just that. It's his body language, his listlessness, Paul George he struggled in the first half. He was like 1 of 7. Like 7 points. That's not a good half, right? Second half, he just keeps playing. He keeps playing his game. He has confidence in knowing what to do. He's aggressive. He understands the refs are going to call it tight or they're going to call it loose. So get more physical. When have you ever seen DeRozan get physical, scramble to get to rebound or make a nice steal? Like, oh, man. You know what? There was one nice steal that DeRozan got in the third quarter. It was the Raptors reeling a lot. And DeRozan fronted, I don't know, Miles Turner in the post, got a steal, goes the other way. You know what he does? He pulls up for a long two, and he missed it. Just, man, DeRozan, he has, I thought he turned it around a lot in game 5, and I thought that Dwayne Casey made a lot of adjustments to help him get free. And I figured once he has this under his belt, he understands, okay, this is where I can get my offense. But then right back, both of them look clueless as to how to get DeRozan open, how to get him shots. And I mean, let's face it, if DeRozan's not scoring for you, he's not getting to the line, he's a bad player.
Yeah, he is. And like it's becoming so easy to neutralize him. And this is not a surprise to me. I mean, I called this series in 7, by the way, for the Raptors, like way back when. So I'm still sticking to that, just because the Pacers are not a good team. But DeRozan comes off that high screen, and even if the guard gets stuck and you have like Mahinmi stuck on DeRozan, he can't even blow by him. Like Mahinmi basically ices him or bodies him away from the basket so easily because DeRozan just doesn't have the quickness to actually explode and get into the paint. Like he needs like an element of Corey Joseph in his game, who has that like hesitation, herky-jerkiness, which allows him to get into the paint and like dish and like fake. He doesn't. Nobody's biting on his fakes. Like I was paying attention to that all game. Nobody bites on his fakes. It doesn't matter like how open he is, like what angle it is, what side of the court it is, how late in the clock it is. Nobody bites on his fakes, and there's a reason why he's only getting to the line 2 times. It's because nobody bites on his fakes, and that's what his game is predicated on. Basically tricking people into thinking he's a good jump shooter. And in a playoff series, when the other coach is planning for you, that's the first thing they're going to notice, and that's the first thing they're going to take away. And that's what's happened. It's no surprise to me that he's 8 points on 3 of 13 shooting. This is entirely predictable. Like if you're even if you watch the Raptors at all, you should not be surprised by these performances from DeRozan. I am not like if you are, Will, I know that deep down even you 30% of you thought that this was a very likely outcome.
I mean, it's certainly possible, and you could say it's a bad matchup. I always see Paul George is a great defender. And, of course, Jan Mahimni is the second coming of Dwight Howard in the paint. He's like Bill Russell out there. I mean, you got Miles Turner. He's like Serge Ibaka. It's hard to score on these guys. But, like, you just hope, because you see – the thing is, DeRozan did take steps during the regular season. And he did sort of diversify his game. But then it gets to the playoffs. None of that works. No. It's still, he has like 3 moves maybe. And like you said, man, if the defense understands what he's trying to do out there, he can't do anything. He doesn't have that natural creativity. He doesn't have that brilliance. And I think that's the difference that separates, a star. Like a star can, when it's not going great, he can create something out of nothing. Yeah. DeRozan, he can create a bad shot and you can hope for it to go in. But that's not creating something out of nothing. Yeah. Anyone can take a bad shot.
Like, you see Paul George in this series, like, as you said, poor first half, but he's always a threat. Like, he's got that, like, pullback move where you think he's going to, like, pull away from you, but then he just drives right away to his right. It's a move that seems to, like, work every time, and he gets into the paint every time. If he at that point misses, like a half-decent shot, you can live with that. But the way the shots DeRozan was missing, like, I don't know what a shot chart looks like, but there's a ton of long twos here, and the times that he did drive, the defense was right there, and he's never, ever had that athletic maneuverability around the paint where he can, like, twist his body and get a high percentage shot off. He doesn't have it, and so we're almost hoping that he gets fouled, or as you said, he hopes to make a tough shot, but it's just nothing there is surprising. All you're hoping that is the momentum of home court, the crowd and whatnot. Home court advantage comes into play, and we squeeze out in Game 7, and basically the calls go our way. Let's switch to Kyle Lowry. Is this guy injured?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it has to. I mean, again, dude, November.
He's shooting like 10% from 3. I think
he's the all-time worst ever playoff performer, like, who's like most games ever under 40%. For I don't know.
Yeah, there's both DeRozan and Larry on that list.
Yeah,
actually, there's 6 Raptors on that list if you count Jerry Stackhouse as a Raptor.
Like the one thing we've been harping on since November, December on the site, and I'm sure like other Raptor blogs too, is that you got to get Kyle Lowry healthy for the playoffs. That's the one job we had. This is after the lessons learned from last year. You got to get this one guy, your star player, healthy for this playoffs. It doesn't matter if you got 56 wins or 48 wins. He's got to be healthy for the playoffs. And clearly, this guy's got some issue with his elbow because he's still he's took a couple of bad shots, but most of his shots are not
Those are his shots.
Those are his shots, and he should be making them. He's not a guy who gets frozen in the playoffs. So he gets nervous. He's injured.
He's got a higher percentage of his shots in the playoffs have been open than the regular season. So he's actually getting better looks in the playoffs, and he's just missing because you're seeing it now with the Pacers. Early in the series, they were guarding him like crazy, or like don't get Lowry an open shot. We'll leave other guys. We'll leave JV and stuff. Now they realize Lowry can't make a shot from the outside, so we don't really have to kill ourselves to get around the screen. We don't need to keep our big man up high, to contest a Lowry shot. Let's just leave. Let's just stay on DeRozan. Let's just stay on JV and whoever else is rolling to the basket and dare Lowry to beat us. Yeah. Doesn't have the jump shot right now. Yeah. So, okay, he doesn't have a jump shot. Then what are you going to do? You can drive to the basket, but it's hard. It's hard to ask a 6-foot guy to get to the basket and score consistently off the dribble. Who could? There's not a lot of them out there, right? And you know what? I credit Lowry for at least making plays in the first half with the pass. He got 10 assists, a couple really nice drives just to open up shots for other people. There's some nice hustle plays, man. There's one play where he passed the ball out, basically like a tip out, but he was like rolling along the court as he did it. Yeah. Those are great, and he's a good defender too. Like that's the thing. When both Lowry and DeRozan struggle, people in the quick react like, "Oh, you're always so much more unfair towards DeRozan than you are Lowry." But that's because there's like a baseline with how much Lowry can give you. He can give you some things other than just scoring. Whereas I hate to go back to DeRozan again, but when DeRozan's when he's not scoring for you, he is a bad player. He's bad on defense. Yeah. He is a bad playmaker. First of all, he's not a willing passer, and second of all, he doesn't really have the handle to consistently get by his man. So he always needs to screen. Yep. I mean, so much of it is just so painful over and over again for Raptors fans, man. These two players, you really do start to think like maybe these guys, this doesn't work.
I mean, it's you have to elevate your game for the playoffs. You have to be prepared for the playoffs. You have to be prepared for the other coach to focus on you, and then it's a question of like, what do you got? And DeRozan just really doesn't have anything. He just done nothing. I mean, you're hoping he gets fouled as we talk. But again, I don't want to go back to him. I think we already talked about the guy. The Patterson move into the starting lineup. I was a big fan of it to make this move in like December because I thought overall it might be better suited for us. But Patterson came back from his early struggles coming off the bench. The coming off the bench really helped him out. He's got a rhythm. He's one of our best players this season, most consistent. He started the playoffs great. We moved him into the starting lineup, and it's not working out well for him because he's a rhythm guy, and we've broken his rhythm. I don't know why we brought him off the bench again after this experiment failed in game 5. Again, he struggled, like 2 for 7, 5 points. Just not like get this guy on back to the bench and start like somebody like a token James Johnson / Jason Thompson, whoever, for like 5 minutes, and then let Patterson come off the bench. Maybe he'll be more productive. Clearly, what you got going right now with him and JV and DeMar Carroll or / Norman Powell, whoever you start there, it's not working. I don't understand this move, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a move that the Raptors should have made during the season.
Exactly.
There's 2 ways you can treat the regular season, right? You can treat the regular season like it's the English Premier League, and every game is important. You got to get all these points. You got to stay, these points ahead on pace or whatever. And then the other way to look at it is what I regular season to find what's the best way my team can play, what possible combinations out there, what lineups work, what lineups don't work, because down the line, your hope is that once you get into the playoffs, you have these options available to you. Yeah. But if you look at the way the Raptors have played during the regular season, they literally only had 4 lineups that they ever played during, meaningful minutes. You have the starting unit, which literally stayed unchanged, save for injuries at JV and DeMar Carroll. And then you have the Lowry plus bench unit, and then you have the DeRozan plus bench unit. Yeah. And I guess it was a small ball type closing lineup. But regardless, The Raptors just don't have that many options. You know, it's not like a fluid situation. Like you're seeing Indiana, for example. You know, so Frank Vogel, he made a lot of great subs in Game 6, and it's not just because they won the game. It's easy to say a coach made great subs when they win the game, but it logically makes sense, right? Yeah. They knew that their two big lineup was going to be able to dominate the Raptors on the glass because JV is a good rebounder, but Patterson's a bad rebounder. So they're able to cause havoc on the glass. Plus, they're bigger at all the guard positions. Yeah. So they're able to do that. And then as soon as Bismack Biyombo came in, they started putting Miles Turner out there. Miles Turner, like, you know, because he can shoot, he takes Bismack Biyombo away from the rim a little bit. And if he helps, Turner can hit the jump shot. So then eventually Dwayne Casey said, okay, I'll put in Jonas Valanciunas. He will attack Turner on defense. And that worked. Jonas got like 3 straight baskets in the second quarter. What did Vogel see? He saw, okay, this is not working. I put in Jan Mahimni to guard JV because he has guys to body him in the post. And along the way, you know, you could see these matchups happen. You see Solomon Hill coming in to match up with Patrick Patterson. Solomon Hill has been amazing in neutralizing Patterson and hurting him on defense too. It's just along the way, every single move that Vogel makes, it works. And there's a thought process behind it. And Dwayne Casey's like I mean, I guess this is going to turn into a conversation about Dwayne Casey, but he's a step slow in reacting to it. And if you think about it, you're the 2 seed, man. You should be dictating terms, but it's never like that. We know that it's not like that with Casey. Dwayne Casey shows up to a job with a tool belt, realizes it's a screw, and then takes out the screwdriver. Yeah, it's like that.
That third quarter situation that we had going was where Corey Joseph came in and he hit a big 3, his third of the game. He was getting to the line against Monta. I got fouled like 2 or 3 times. JV was dominating inside. I think they had Mahimi or Turner to try to guard him, and he was basically dominating inside. And then KC switched that up, and Carroll was having a nice little moment too. I think he was pairing well with Carroll. Bastia had overall a pretty decent game again.
Yeah, it was all in the first half. The second half, he fell apart.
He fell apart, but he also hit he hit a couple of key shots though, man.
He did
in the third quarter, and he was guarding George okay. He was covering well. He was supplying ball pressure. It was a decent lineup with JV in the middle and Corey Joseph, Kyle Lowry, DeMar Carroll, and I don't know who the fourth guy. I think it was I forget who it was. Decent lineup. Dwayne Casey changed that up, and he got in basically the lineup that closed out Game 5, and that killed us. What pissed me off, man, was seeing Terrence Ross at the start of the fourth quarter. Because he had not had a good first half. He looked out of sorts, and he immediately came in, dribbled the ball out of bounds, turnover, Pacers scored. I think Ross took like another 2 bad shots in that stretch. Wasn't working out. I didn't understand why you would want to go away from Corey Joseph and JV on the court at the same time, because one was dominating inside, and Corey Joseph was the only Raptor that was able to get into the paint whenever he wanted. And yep. that's a guy you have to pay. How much did he play this game?
25 minutes. His usual minutes. Even though DeRozan was struggling.
DeRozan 37, Corey Joseph 25. Those minutes should be switched. Like there's absolutely no. It's not hindsight. This is completely. I'm not telling you this because I'm looking at the box score now and I'm doing retrospectives here. No. Corey Joseph should have been playing 35 minutes and DeMar DeRozan should have been playing 22 minutes in this game. It's simple as that. You make that small change, we might actually have a chance at this game. And I did not understand that at all.
Well, I mean, I thought the biggest failure for Dwayne Casey today was when the third quarter started and it was clear that Indiana had made some adjustments. So, for example, DeRozan, the Raptors made a decision last game that they're going to switch up the defensive assignments. So now Lowry's going to guard Monte Ellis and DeRozan's going to guard George Hill. The reason for that is because Lowry's a better defender and Monte Ellis gets more possessions. So now you get Lowry defending more possessions. But they realized that. And then so they started shifting the offense back to George Hill. And now DeRozan's getting burned on defense. So Dwayne Casey doesn't see this. Like you could, if I don't know, I'm not saying a better coach, but like if you were quicker on this, you would switch the matchups back to where they were before. You have Lowry back on George Hill. But regardless, you have that. And then just the Pacers were just dismantling the Raptors starting 5 coming out of the second half. And then Dwayne Casey called the timeout 5 minutes into the game after they've already given up the 4-point lead. It's like a 7-point deficit at this point. Yeah. Out of the timeout, it's the same lineup. the same
honestly,
lineup
man,
that
like
goes out for another 3 minutes.
hard,
Oh God.
how hard does a coach have to like hide his star player on defense? Like what other team does that? Houston with
seriously, man,
James Harden, maybe no, not even. Like they just
and
because he gives you so
at
much
least James
offense
Harden
that
gives you like this third best offensive player
yeah,
in the league
like
type production on offense.
you shouldn't have to think about hiding DeMar DeRozan on defense after every lineup change. Like that shouldn't even have to cross a coach's mind. There's enough shit going on in this game that you have to worry about. Least of all should be what DeMar DeRozan's defense is. Especially for a guy who plays 30. That's like 37 minutes of worrying who DeMar DeRozan's guarding. It's impossible to coach that.
It is, man. It is. It's like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've seen Dwayne Casey go away from DeRozan in game 2, and I gave Dwayne Casey a lot of credit. That was a very ballsy decision. And I thought he realized something that he had with Lowry and Joseph. But, you know, he just, after that game, he's stuck with DeRozan. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's made some adjustments in game 5. I thought he playing DeRozan at power forward on offense, at least, was like, you know, interesting because he has more space to work with. And he played against the bench unit. This game, most of DeRozan's minutes came against George again. How many times do we have to figure out that DeRozan cannot score on George?
No.
If DeRozan's on George, you just leave him as a decoy, man. Just tell him, look, just keep George occupied, make a cut, something, you know, but don't get in the way of the play because you're not going to get the ball anymore. No,
you give the DeRozan the ball 10 times against Paul George, he might get you 2 buckets, maybe. That's like one bucket and 2 free throws.
He was 3 of 13, 2 free throws, 4 turnovers. Just horrible, just horrendous. And all 3 shots that he made were all long twos. Who are you going to beat with just long twos from DeRozan? Like, what is that?
It's just not sustainable. I mean, you go ahead and I'm not going to say we should play Norman Powell ahead of DeMar DeRozan, but if you had played him today, you probably would have gotten a better, like more efficient offense than that guy than DeRozan. But what pisses me off is that you have a guy who's playing completely terrible basketball. At least Lowry's justifying himself by racking up 10 assists and setting up plays and penetrating a little bit. DeRozan's doing nothing and he's racking up 37 minutes. That's not smart. I mean, game 2 is evidence that you have to bench this guy if you want to succeed. And Casey, like in the 2 losses since, just hasn't done that. He hasn't. He's had opportunity to bench him and try something else or get a more effective player on. He hasn't. He's chosen to stick with him, hoping that somehow DeRozan finds his long 2 game and hits 5 in a row and pulls us through. The law of averages says that's not going to happen.
No, and it's like I see a lot of analysis out there that's like, look, DeRozan's his shot's gonna normalize. You know, he's better than this. He's, you know, even on these contested shots, he shoot a higher percentage. It just doesn't make sense. You're not going to have things normalized in 7 games. You're just not. And things that happen in the regular season, we're talking about a specific matchup against Paul George and against the way the Pacers are playing defense. In that system, those other laws don't apply. It doesn't matter that he averaged 24 points a game in the regular season. He wasn't getting guarded by Paul George every time. And not like this. Not with this kind of focus, not with this kind of scouting. And I think that this is without, beyond any doubt that the depth to DeRozan's game is scoutable, it's defendable, and it's exploitable. And, you know, teams might still look at 24 points in the regular season and say, look, that's a top 10 score right there. I'm going to sign him to the max. And there's probably going to be teams out there. And the Raptors can't really just lose DeRozan for nothing. But at this point, you really have to start thinking about what is the Raptors' future with DeRozan here, because we see that if the idea is to compete, like literally compete in the playoffs, it's hard to do, man. It is hard to do with these are your 2 pieces with Lowry and DeRozan. It is.
And you know, on the Pacers, I hate to come back to this, man. They're not a good team, man.
They're not. Look, they were making Solomon Hill. Solomon Hill was a plus 32. Rodney Stuckey was plus 29. That shouldn't happen in any series against anybody. They shouldn't be plus 29 in a week. In a month, they shouldn't be plus 29, man. Everybody was, God, you're getting Miles Turner burning you, just everything. And you know what? Not all of it's on Casey, too. You know, this is the players, too. Yeah. They folded. As soon as Lowry picked up foul trouble, which, by the way, was because of their offense. As soon as their offense goes bad, they start taking bad shots. They lose floor balance. The Pacers go the other way. They score the transition. You know, DeRozan's not getting back. You know, every time DeRozan misses a shot, he falls over. Why is that? Why is that a thing? He falls over. It's up to like everyone else to run back on the transition. You saw it. Lowry commits like 2 fouls there. Okay, now Lowry's in foul trouble. He has to go to the bench. And that at that point, you got nothing, man. And that's why Terrence Ross is out there. Obviously, Terrence Ross was garbage in the first half. He came out in the fourth quarter because there was nobody else. There's nobody else.
Well, I mean, I would have.
DeRozan struggling. Everyone's struggling. You got to play 3 guards, sometimes 4 guards if you want to go small.
I would have. I did not see any reason why Terrence Ross should be on the court, because Terrence Ross, if there's one pattern he's shown very consistently this year, is that if he has a poor first half, he's going to follow up with even a shittier second half. This is not a guy who finds his way late in games. It's very rare. So when I saw him and Carroll on the bench, it just did not make sense to me. And immediately we paid the price, and our offense went in a drought. And it was so predictable before it even happened that's what's the frustrating part. And like I'm a little like, I like small ball, whatever, but I'm of the mind that we have to have JV or Biyombo in there at all times, because play them both together. I don't even care, man, because when we have success in this series, we are dominating the glass.
Yeah, we got out rebounded.
We got out rebounded today against a Pacer front line, which is just not that good. Like, Mahinmi is the only big guy they have. Miles Turner is easily pushed around. He managed to get 9 rebounds. We have to dominate the glass here. Like, if we're not winning the battle on the glass, and if JV's not getting the minutes, Biyombo's not getting the minutes, we're gonna lose the series, man. We might lose Game 7 if we're like -7 in rebounds again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the thing, right? Early on in the series, the Raptors were dominating the glass to a hilarious extent.
Yeah.
But now you've seen the rebounds.
Why? Can you explain to me? Can you explain like why? Why are the rebounds? Why did we lose the rebounding battle in this game?
Because Frank Vogel found a way to play his bigs in a way that can affect what the Raptors are doing. So now Frank Vogel is dictating matchups, right? So you saw as soon as he made the move to start Miles Turner, that really turned the whole series around, because now his front line, those two can now guard JV, also dominate the glass. And the Raptors try to make a move, usually by Patterson, trying to go small. And then they know, okay, we can put in Solomon Hill. I don't know, man. It's just, I feel like Frank Vogel has solved all the Raptors' moves, and the Raptors are now adapting to his moves. Yeah. And it's crazy, man. You're a 2 seed. You should.
Here's the example that I like to give here, man. Here's the example. Like, Miles Turner starts, Patrick Patterson starts. Why does Patrick Patterson start? Because on paper, in Dwayne Casey's mind, in the Raptors' war room, they're thinking Miles Turner cannot guard Patrick Patterson on the wing. He's going to burn him on the 3. Guess what? Patrick Patterson is not a great driver of the ball, and Miles Turner covers a lot of ground. It hasn't worked. Like, the starting Patterson in response to Miles Turner starting has not worked, and we have to fix that. We can't continue matching those two up, because it's not. I mean, it's taking Patterson out of his game, and it's not preventing Miles Turner from doing anything he wouldn't do otherwise anyway. It's not. There's no net gain for the Raptors by adopting to that. You know what I mean? Like, we may as well start a bigger guy who keeps Miles Turner off the glass and forget about this. Let's introduce Patrick Patterson so he moves Turner away from the glass. That's not working. Go with your regular setup. I mean, don't
go with Scola.
Go with Jason Thompson. I mean, I don't know.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I thought Jason Thompson was the smart move in Game 5, just to keep Patterson's rhythm off the bench.
And the thing is that keep Turner off the glass. Like, why do we, like, rebounding is the most important thing in basketball, because it translates directly into possessions. That's what we give up when we start Patterson against Turner. You're giving up rebounding, and you should never be giving up rebounding. Or in extremely rare cases, should you be giving up possessions? That's what made.
Yeah, it's easier. You know what it is? It's also easier when it's Bismack Biyombo out there playing alongside Patterson. The rebounding edge is a little bit different, because it's like this. Patterson is usually guarding a perimeter player, so when the rebound goes up, he's coming from outside the crash in, like a wing, like a guard, right? That's why his rebounding numbers are so low. But when you have JV down there, what they do is basically they have one guy that kind of like holds JV, like neutralize JV, and then at that point, the onus really becomes on Patterson to get all the rebounds. When you have Bismack Biyombo out there, he's so much more athletic and stuff. It's harder to hold him down. So he's jumping up into the air faster and beating everyone else to the punch. And as much as JV has good rebounding numbers, and he is a solid rebounder, there's ways where you can neutralize JV a little bit and force Patterson to make up for his efforts, and it's just not possible, especially when he's coming from the perimeter like that.
But
That's
you
why
need JV's offense. I mean, you need
exactly.
his offense. Like you can't afford to bench him. Not with these guys going 7 for 27.
Yeah.
Well, JV had some huge baskets in this game, man.
He was. No, I'm not even critiquing JV.
no,
I'm
no,
just saying like the Pacers have they feels like they've solved every single move the Raptors have.
Like I remember there was this play in the third quarter, I think, where they tried to give JV the ball. I think it was the first time they actually dumped the ball to him on the block, because most of his points were like essentially off the offensive rebound or whatever. Yeah, right. Like they actually tried to run a play for JV, and Monta Ellis came and he stole the ball away again, like for the fifth time in the last two games.
That's because JV just always puts that shit down.
Yeah,
what are you doing, man? Keep that shit up.
Okay, there's so much dynamics there, man. You can't blame it on JV. You got to blame it on spacing, the guy making the pass, what type of pass it is, like the timing on the shot. There's a lot of things going on there. You just can't be dumping it to JV, expecting him to like do. He's not there yet. He's not that good of a player. Where he's not like freaking Patrick Ewing, where he's got the sense to like observe and like weigh and then make the room. You have to set him up like accordingly. And he turned the ball over, and for the rest of the game, we never went back to that play. Like it was abandoned because of one failure. It wasn't like, okay, why don't we just see what's there? Because we know we've proven in this series that in the block, Mahinmi can't really guard him.
Well, Mahinmi has done a lot better job guarding him now, but Miles Turner can't guard him.
He can't guard him, and Turner was guarding him.
Yeah.
Go back to it. Like why do your top three guys are Lowry, DeRozan, and JV. Top two isn't working. Why don't you give it to JV? See what he gives you. At least he'll slow the game down. At worst, when JV commits a turnover, it doesn't get run back for 2 points immediately like when DeRozan does.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
I'm not saying giving it to JV solves our problems, man. I'm just saying that it's an option that we haven't really explored at all.
Dude, and again, this goes back to regular season, right? What did you use the regular season for? Exactly. The Raptors did a great job of getting the most wins they possibly could. They played Lowry heavy minutes, they played DeRozan heavy minutes, they played one style, they knew that worked, and then they went to the playoffs. They got nothing. They in terms of adjustments, it's hard, man. And you know what? I credit Dwayne Casey for making some moves, some adjustments that have worked. Game 5, DeRozan going up, kind of attacking the bench, things like this. They have worked, right? But you have no certainty that it will work. You have no sample size in it, right? You have not tested this in the regular season. You don't know what you have in the back pocket. You're just throwing it out there, right? That's the kind of coaching Dwayne Casey does in terms of inside the game. If his original game plan does not work, which halftime, it gets solved by the halftime, right? If his original game plan does not work, he either needs his stars to be brilliant to make it not matter, or he needs to, or he starts just like, not throwing random stuff out there, but like taking gambles. And I guess every coach to some extent, if the players aren't playing well, the regular game plan doesn't work, you start scrambling.
Yeah. But
you see a lot of scramble coaching out of Casey, man. Yeah. And it's just this is the second time in a row they played in Indiana. The scramble type coaching did not work at all, man. They just rolled over, man. Come on, they're gonna treat it like Game 7. This is how they're gonna treat Game 7. They're gonna get blown out. You're gonna have.
I think so. Again, I'm not. I guess we should talk about Game 7 coming up on Sunday. I don't know what time it's on.
Depends on the other game.
Yeah, I think the other game, Miami just beat them, so there's a Game 7 as well on Sunday for them as well. What was I gonna say? I totally blanked out. Yeah, Game 7. Game 7. Yeah. In Toronto, you would think that you would get more calls in Toronto at the very least. You would hope. Even though in this game, it's not like the Pacers got all the calls. They had 26 free throws. We had 25. I don't know why we missed 9 free throws in this game, but I don't think it would have mattered. So the calls have been even. I don't believe the refs have had a big influence in the series at all.
I'll just say this much with the refs. The refs, like I guess, what you want out of the refs is to call it one way and stay that way. Yeah. And I think the refs have been consistent in doing that. Yeah. But I think generally speaking, the refs have allowed a lot of contact to go. They played a soft whistle, which is fine, and they've stayed to a soft whistle for the most part. But a soft whistle really favors the Pacers because they're really physical on defense. Whereas the Raptors, you look at the Raptors to play the Raptors play defense, save for like, Remember, like game 5, like that was one of the things that was so rewarding was like the Raptors just like physically imposed themselves on the Pacers. It's harder as a smaller team to be that physical on defense, and the Raptors aren't. And so
Hey,
that does favor the Pacers.
hey
But
man,
it's not a
you know what?
it,
That's happening in a lot of series right now. Like
exactly.
Miami shot 15 free throws and won the game. Like
The Raptors are playing at 8 on Sunday, 8 p.m.
so there you go. So I refuse to believe that the refs have a big influence here. I just you have to convince me that's
No. It's not a bias or anything like that. It's just they're calling a style, and that style is not it's better for the Pacers, and that's fine.
I mean,
That's fine.
I could argue that George could have gone to the line like 6 more times today. I think
Seriously.
he got bumped a few times in the first half where he had legitimate. I thought he was going to pick up a technical actually, like
He
on the
really
third play of the
he
game.
like yeah. There was early in the game. I remember he like sort of lashed out against the ref and somehow avoided a tech.
Yeah.
Whatever, man.
So
It's not like George is
game
gonna get
7.
kicked out.
Let's talk. Well, we want to talk about the 18-0 run the Pacers went on between the third and fourth. Do we have to talk about that?
The Raptors went scoreless for like 7 minutes.
Yeah. Until Lowry hit a 3 or something, like
Something, yeah.
which he followed up with a 3 which hit like the side of the backboard.
His elbow is man. It doesn't matter how early he shows up to the game and stuff like that. And again, it's not like this elbow injury just occurred during the playoffs. Remember, this happened during the season. He did not rest.
Yeah.
The Raptors kept playing him 40 minutes. You remember after every game, I remember writing my game notes. You know, this is a great game. Lowry still played 20 minutes. This is 20 minutes. This is a lot of gambles for Lowry to play this many minutes. And people were getting pretty annoyed. Like, okay, whatever, man. We're getting these wins. It doesn't really matter that he's whatever. Play a lot of minutes, but you got to play your best players. Well, guess what? In the playoffs, now his fucking elbow is injured. And his elbow was injured for like months.
Yeah.
And the Raptors gave him no time off, except for the end of the season when they let him sit like 2 games. And he came back after 2 games and played like 37 minutes.
Are we gonna
Game
stop
7,
Miles
whatever.
Turner? Are we gonna stop Miles Turner in this series? Because the guy, I expect him to like go 0 for 6 at some point from his like 18-foot jump shot, but it's not happening. Like he's nailing them at a ridiculous rate. 6 of 11 today. The only guy that can possibly guard him well is Patrick Patterson, but
Yeah, he's done a poor job of that this year, Patterson.
he's not. Yeah, even Patterson has been burned a couple times by him. I don't know the
Yeah.
answer to this thing here.
I don't even think it's the offense thing. I think it's just the energy and defense he's bringing. He's been so solid around the basket. Like it's so hard to score on the Pacers on the inside right now because they have bigger wing defenders guiding you toward centers that are just sitting there. So unless you fake them out and you get Lowry, you get Valanciunas open, and then you throw it to Valanciunas, there's no other way. The Raptors are not beating their man at the point of attack. It's just, say for Joseph, like you said. And again, Joseph's done most of that work against backup lineups, which Frank Vogel took away, and now the Raptors have almost nothing.
Yeah.
Man.
Also, their guards are very like pass centric. Like they all love to pass. I mean, at least in this game. I mean, Paul George,
Paul
George Hill,
George is a
Monta
good
Ellis,
passer.
even Rodney Stuckey had some nice passes in that second half. They're all like looking for each other. Whereas when you look at the Raptors, the only guy I can say that about is Kyle Lowry because he doesn't really have the confidence in his shot, I believe, and Corey Joseph. But that's only like cases where like once he penetrates and then he tries to look for somebody. But those guys, the Pacers, they're always looking to make the extra pass at this point. And the Raptors, you can't say about that. And the assist numbers, of course, reflect that. 21 assists for the Pacers, 14 for the Raptors. We've been used to that for like all season long. So I guess that's no surprise here. But all right, Game 7, man, go. What do the Raptors do here? Any lineup change? Like what? What do we do?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, right? So, this series has been so hard to predict in terms of what's going to happen game to game. You don't really see a 7-game series where like 5 of the games have been blowouts.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it is like what Dwayne Casey says. You know, it is which team comes out with that energy, with that punch, and you know, hopefully the Raptors can summon it all back together. You know, a lot of role players play better at home. This is just but it's hard to say. It's hard to say in terms of adjustments. I might try Jason Thompson to start the game, but like 5 minutes and
Can you
then
imagine
go back to Patterson.
trotting that lineup out in the most important game of the series for the first
know,
time
man.
ever? Like that should never happen.
I know and the power forward spot's been a big problem. I mean, you go back to the trade deadline. Remember I was freaking out because look, in the playoffs, teams are gonna really, really pressure Lowry and DeRozan. They're gonna send 2 guys at them all the time. It would really help if you had a third option who is a big who can score consistently. JV did that for the first 2 games and then faded. They figured out a way to solve the JV problem. But what they do is they just sag in the paint. And a guy like Ryan Anderson would be nice because if he was the one setting the screen, you got Lowry. They got 2 guys trapping Lowry. Lowry kicks it back to the Ryan Anderson. He can hit the 3. Regardless, the trade deadline went and passed. It's just the power forward spot has been a big problem. And hopefully you get a good game out of Patterson. Because Patterson's had great games in the series and then just like total clunkers. And tonight he was terrible. He couldn't even guard Solomon Hill. Yeah. It was weird.
Yeah, I don't have any great insight into what the Raptors should do in Game 7. The fact that it's at home, I think DeRozan's going to shoot more than 2 free throws. Lowry's going to shoot more than 2 free throws, you hope.
But you have to beat your man to do that.
You have to beat your man to do that. But, in the last game, he shot 10 free throws, at home. He didn't beat anybody in that game.
Well, he played against the bench unit a lot, right?
Yeah.
And now this time, DeRozan didn't.
Well, I can guarantee you that Paul George played how many minutes in this game? 40. He's playing 44 in Game 7, man. And the chances of DeRozan having possessions against somebody not named Paul George is going to be very low. And he's not gonna fake him out. That's for sure.
This is why I think we need less DeRozan.
It's too ballsy. I don't think. Can you imagine if us losing Game 7 and DeRozan playing 24 minutes? He's walking in free agency after that. I don't know, Will. What do you want to take this from here?
I don't know, man. It's just what? Can we just speak about the effect it has on the fan base?
Okay, it's deflating, is what it is. I think you're gonna have a lot of nervous people in the arena on Game 7.
Yeah, okay.
There was a lot of traveling fans at the game today, and I was catching the in-arena feed on League Pass, and the fourth quarter they were how they show fans of the home fans having fun, kiss cam, and all that stuff. In the fourth quarter, they just started showing Raptor fans. And, on the jumbotron, and it was pretty awkward. Those guys looked pretty dejected, and I don't know.
You got the tickets to get into the game. It is $300, $200 to get into the game, and so people are traveling all the way to Indiana just to show their support for this team. And you come out with that performance. It is despicable. It is despicable to have a fan base. And I this is always the card, and it sounds sort of self-serving, but the Raptors fan base have been awesome towards the team. Very supportive. You know this. I mean, shit, we run this blog. You run this blog for 10 years. There's been a lot of shit that happened in 10 years, man. And you know what? And you can testify to this. We've had so many fans stay with the blog for those 10 years. We have people commenting who are passionate. Rough summers. We're talking about Quincy Acey. What role can Quincy Acey play next year? We have that for 10 years. We have a 56-win team. We go to the playoffs and we still drop an egg like this. The Raptors are cursed, man. The Raptors are cursed. And it's hard to buy into a franchise that's cursed, it's hard. I feel bad for everyone else. I feel bad for other fans.
As a fan watching this game, I was watching with a friend of mine, and he pointed out to DeRozan, he goes, "This guy just looks lethargic. He's asleep." And I was like, "Well, that's a bit harsh, isn't it?" Then I actually pondered on that thought for the next 5 minutes, and I watched DeRozan's body language, and I could not disagree with that. If you talk about a guy who's fired up, he did not look fired up. He didn't look like a guy who the rest of his teammates would look at and we go, "Yo, we got to win this game because this guy's putting it all out there. We're going to get behind him. We're going to ride him and we're going to win this." And you look at Paul George on the other end. Even though he's struggling, he's chest bumping. He's he's into the game. Even though he's not even an emotional guy, you can still tell that the guy is not giving up. He's there for his team. He's driving. He's getting to the free throw line. You can see. I guess what I'm trying to say is that when the Pacers look at Paul George, they get a sense of confidence that they can win this. When the Raptors look at DeMar DeRozan, I don't think they get that sense of confidence. And when they look at an injured Kyle Lowry, they have to go ugh. It's not the same effect these two have on the rest of the teammates than a guy like an elite player like Paul George has on his. And the effort level, I hate to say this because DeMar DeRozan, the one thing that we can never criticize him for is lack of effort or lack of commitment. But
during games, he lacks effort.
Yeah, it's in this playoff series, he's certainly defensive effort he lacks completely. And we've seen that in this series. And I don't know, I'm a bit rambling, man, but basically what I'm saying is that I don't think DeMar DeRozan's a guy who gives the rest of his team his confidence.
Yeah. And I feel honestly, I feel so bad for fellow fans. You know, I've been in this, I've been following the team for like, I don't know, like 12, 13 years. And like, even I'm like, I have to step back and question, like, what the hell, man? What are we even doing? Right?
Game 7. Game 7 predictions, Will. Game 7 predictions. Let's go to Game 7 predictions. Let's take a moment and give us Game 7 predictions. You're going to be a fan on Sunday, Will. You're not going to change your mind that fast. So, of course. So what are we doing here?
Been a fan for a long time.
I'm going to go. Okay.
I say the Raptors lose, man.
You're going to say Raptors lose? No, I'm going to say Raptors win. Raptors win.
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right.
It's that's my call from day one, man. Raptors in 7, and I think they're going to win this. Because I don't think the Pacers, again, for the 5th time in this podcast, they're not a good team. And the
Raptors are not a good team right now.
I think home court advantage plays a big part here. And
is someone going to jump out from the stands and like kidnap Paul George for the rest of the game?
Let me put it this way. Kyle Lowry
safely
is so due, even on an injured elbow. He's due for a 50%. He's going to have a 50% game. And if DeRozan has a 50%,
but I mean, like, how do you do? All right, I hope so, man. I hope so, but I don't know. Logically, that doesn't sound correct because DeRozan's been solved. I wrote in Game 2 that he's been checkmate basically in this playoff series, and for Lowry, he's just injured. So I don't know. I mean, I hope so, man. I hope so. Look, I was at Game 5. That was like the most thrilling game I've ever been to, and I'm not gonna count the Raptors out. But just based on how they've looked in the last 3 games now, the Pacers have played like the Raptors have led for like 5 minutes, like 2 quarters in the last 3 games.
Do you start Corey Joseph and Kyle Lowry? Of course, it's not going to happen. But to me,
they're not going to do it.
I mean, the Raptors have the most success the Raptors have is when they have a lot of ball handling on the court.
And need it too.
And they have an effective big on the court, one of JV or Biyombo. To me, the lineup that actually works is, and I've said this all along, is Kyle Lowry, Corey Joseph, pick Norman Powell, or you could replace him with DeMar Carroll. Fine, one of JV or Biyombo, and Patterson in key stretches, not to start the game. Like when the game's on the line, that's the lineup you want to go with. What you do not want to do is if your offense is struggling, like if you're like the defense is clamping on, they're pressuring you. What the 2 guys you don't want on the court at that time is Terrence Ross and DeMar DeRozan, and that's the 2 guys we had when this game was hanging in the balance in that 3rd, 4th quarter. Why? Because DeMar DeRozan is prone to taking bad shots, and he's a terrible defender. And Terrence Ross, because if he hasn't shown he's got it on the night in the first half, he's certainly not going to bring it in the second, and he's going to do dumb shit. And that's exactly what he did. He did dumb shit. Both things are not rocket science. Both things are predictable. This is not hindsight. This is like your just basic analysis of watching the first 3 games will tell you that this is going to happen, and how we allowed that to happen. Despite DeMar DeRozan struggling in the first half, despite Terrence Ross struggling, why those 2 guys are playing crunch minutes in that key stretch, which happened on the heels of Raptors having a good stretch with Corey, Joe, and JV in there. Why we changed that dynamic and allowed that 18-0 run to start is just it. I don't know. All right, yeah, go.
No, man, I got nothing to say. Honestly, I'm overwhelmed with just disappointment in this team, man.
Okay, so just looking at Sam's quick reaction here, I'm kind of agreeing with all his grades. Patterson D+, DeMar Carroll B+, JV A. I agree. Kyle Lowry C+, DeRozan F, Ross F, Biyombo B+, Corey Joe A, Norman Powell C+, Dwayne Casey C, but whatever the fuck. I think he's bang on here. I think that kind of wraps it up, man. We'll try to come back on for a pregame podcast. Maybe we'll certainly come back for a postgame podcast after Game 7. Will, one more time to give you a prediction for Game 7.
Oh, fuck it. The Raptors win, man. What the fuck?
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
It's the Pacers.
It's the freaking Pacers at home. Come on. And listener, thank you for tuning in. I know it's a bit of a disjointed podcast, but we did record this literally like 1 second after the buzzer sounded. The Raptors lose to the Pacers 101-83. Game 7 is on Sunday, 8 p.m. at the ACC. Get your tickets now. I think the team needs your support. In the other series, Miami and Charlotte are also going into Game 7. That Game 7 is going to be in Miami again on Sunday night. So we're going to play the winner of that series if we advance past the Pacers. My prediction, Will, is the Raptors will win it. It might be close, but they should pull this one off at home. The only fear here, man, is Paul George going off for like a freaking Kobe-esque game, which is possible, but I'm going to say it's improbable.
Yeah. I mean, the only fear is that the Raptors are the Raptors.
I guess we'll only find that out once we watch the game. So, listener, thank you for tuning in to the post-game podcast. We'll talk to you soon. Rate us on iTunes, whatever. Support Raptors Republic by going to patreon.com/Raptors Republic. Thanks again for tuning in. We appreciate you downloading the podcast. We love making it for you. Rate us on iTunes. Tell us what we can do better. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.